You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC, presented by RockAutocom. Save time, save money. RockAuto.com for all your auto parts needs. I'm Chris Gordy. Welcome into Locked On SEC. We are a day away from getting you ready for the full weekend of games, but we got an SEC game tonight. The Tennessee Volunteers will be getting going on the field with their new quarterback, Joe Milton. We're going to catch up with our buddy Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols, here in just a second, and we'll do the whole show with him, get his thoughts on some of the other SEC games happening this weekend. But for now, I am Chris Gordy. Let's jump right into it.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And get into it as the Tennessee Volunteers are on the football field tonight, taking on Bowling Green in their season opener. And our buddy Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols, joins us now. Eric, what's the mood like? How are Vol fans feeling for the start of the Josh Heupel era?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, they're excited. Football is finally back. It took a little while for everybody to come and get used to the Thursday night opener, but, they're ready to roll. They're going to pack Neyland Stadium and excited to see some fireworks, both with the new light show, but also with Josh Heupel's offense, and ready to see what it's all about. Ready to see Joe Milton and kind of kick this thing off, this new era of Tennessee football, and hopefully for Tennessee fans, an era that sticks around for more than just 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, update us on, because I saw the news made the headlines about the LED lights and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of joked. I said I think Tennessee fans are more worried about, hey, can we just win some games? It doesn't really matter if we got great. We look sexy with cool orange lighting, but it did look pretty cool from what I'd seen the videos and the pictures posted.
So it's funny. Earlier this week, I was at Calhoun's on the River, where we do some of the Ball Network, nightly shows, and I was over there getting an interview and helping out a little bit, and I could see Neyland Stadium, about a mile down the road, and they're kind of going over that light show. So from the outside looking in, I saw a little bit of it. It looked pretty neat, but this is just something that Georgia's already done. I believe Florida's done it as well. Knox County here in East Tennessee, for the high school, they all paid for some individual lights to put into the 13 high school stadiums to do it as well. So, it's just something, a little flair, a little pizzazz, and we'll see if it, helps with some fan engagement and helps with some recruiting and all that. But more so just that, and of course, bringing back the Vol Walk this year, because couldn't do that in 2019. Such a great Tennessee tradition, running through the T. I think maybe I'm biased here because I'm an East Tennessee guy, but I think it's one of the more iconic entrances into a college football game, in around the country. And so just kind of bringing that stuff back in 2020 that was absent in 2019. I think all this to kind of get this fan atmosphere back to where it wants to be, and under a new athletics director, Danny White.
What are expectations for this game? What do you want to see most? Obviously, I think the quarterback, Joe Milton, grabs a lot of the headlines, but what do you want to see? I mean, is it more just, I've been saying like competency at the quarterback spot. It's not that they were god awful, but man, it could really use some consistency there.
Yeah, I mean, it was Jared Garantano was a starter here for so long, and I mean, his career was filled with some highs, a lot of lows, not a whole lot of in betweens. And in his defense, he was brought in as a redshirt freshman back in 2017. Got his he got beat up, in 2017 and 2018, and then I think that really did affect him in 2019 and certainly in 2020. But Jared Garantano is gone now. You're bringing in some better quarterback options, in my opinion. I know Harrison Bailey's still there, and he started the last 3 games of the season in 2020. But Hendon Hooker, who started over 15 games at Virginia Tech, Joe Milton, who was the starting quarterback for Michigan to begin the 2020 season, and Milton is going to be the guy. So I think for tomorrow, with Milton, with that offense, you want to see some explosive plays. You want to see that tempo. It's going to be fast. I don't believe it's going to be perfect game one, but you want to see what this tempo and all that's going to be about. I'm not going into this saying, Tennessee's got to score 50 or 60. If you don't win by 45, it's a failure. I'm not doing that. I just want to see a clean game, offense to take care of the football, convert on third downs, and then conversely on defense, got to go get some takeaways. I mean, Bowling Green, this is not the Bowling Green team that opened up against Tennessee in Nissan Stadium in Nashville back in 2015. This program has fallen on hard times. And so Tennessee needs to go out there, get a statement win, protect the football, and go get the football defensively and get this thing started off on the right foot.
What can we expect from the run game? I've heard, Jabari Small looked really good at times. I know it's going to be a little bit different. I mean, you're so used to a couple of big-time backs these last couple of years. What can we expect from the run game tonight?
Yeah, Ty Chandler had been a great contributor for 4 years at Tennessee. He's taking advantage of that super senior year going to North Carolina. Eric Gray, of course, a phenomenal young talent. He would have been incredible in this offense. But Tennessee brings back Jabari Small, all of 26 carries last year. He is the veteran in that group. And then, the top running back for the junior college ranks in Tyon Evans. And Tennessee's coaches feel really good about what you have in the running back backfield. You've got those two guys, a true freshman and Jalen Wright from North Carolina that is a track star. He's a speedster. He will have a role in this offense. You've got a couple of big backs there if you need them behind them. But I'll look at this as a 1A, 1B type situation in the backfield with Jabari Small and Tyon Evans. Jabari Small had a fantastic spring, had a good camp too, but Josh Heupel just continues to rave about what Tyon Evans has brought to this team. He's powerful in between the tackles. He can catch the football out of the backfield. He's an older guy coming from junior college, and the maturity has gone up there. And just learning how to be a Division I football player, there's been a lot of good things said about Tyon Evans. So I'll look at that as almost a near 50-50, split share in the backfield between those two guys. And then you'll bring in the change and pace back and Jalen Wright on certain passing situations.
Receiver-wise, Velus Jones, obviously a great weapon to have, but a couple transfers in there, Javonte Payton, Anderson Cody. I mean, how do you see them working the receiver rotations out?
Yeah, so Velus Jones and Jalen Hyatt are going to lead that group, and Hyatt's the deep threat. You can take the top off any defense. He's so fast, and I think a couple of times this year, maybe not tomorrow night, but maybe or tonight, but you might see Joe Milton drop back and just sling that sucker 50, 60 yards, and Jalen Hyatt just go up and run under it. That's the type of potential that Tennessee has with those two guys. But Jalen Hyatt, Velus Jones, you've got Cedric Tillman, who's been at Tennessee for quite some time. He's a bigger receiver, standing at 6'3", 220. If he was a step faster, I think he'd be somebody we're talking about on a consistent basis, but he's going to be in the starting rotation. You got the Holiday and Jimmy Holiday and Jimmy Callaway, both former quarterbacks, saw limited time last year in 2020, but now sophomores. I expect to see more of those guys. Javonte Payton, you mentioned, has SEC experience. He'll line up on the outside. Tennessee really likes his length. Walker Merrill, a true freshman, will be a backup slot guy, a speedster, runs very, very good routes. And then Anderson Cody, who you mentioned, it's weird. He was a guy that Kevin Steele brought into Tennessee during that time when Jeremy Pruitt was away from the program. Tennessee didn't have a head coach. Anderson Cody came in under Kevin Steele, and the staff really likes his makeup, a guy that can play a little bit everywhere. So with this receiver room, you have some experience in Velus Jones Jr. and Jalen Hyatt, and even Cedric Tillman for that matter, but not a whole lot of experience behind those. So I think the potential is there. I think Tennessee likes the options in terms of depth, but it's just about getting a lot of those guys some run-of-the-mill SEC playing experience here early on in the season.
More with Eric Cain in just a second. I need to remind you guys about our friends over at RockAuto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local auto parts chain store to stock everything that you need. And more often than not, they're going to go to their computer and they're going to be looking up the same parts you could be finding for yourself online. Save yourself some time and money. Go to RockAuto.com. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The price is reliably low. For every customer that goes on there, they have everything you can need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Whatever it is you need for your vehicle, they're going to have it for you at RockAuto.com. Go to RockAuto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, and make sure when you find what you want to get for your vehicle and you go to checkout, before you do that, make sure you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com. Rolling along here with our buddy Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols. And Eric, we've been talking a little bit about Tennessee, getting ready for their home opener against Bowling Green tonight. And I did want to bring up to you, we talked a little bit about the offense. I wanted to touch on the defense because this is the spot where I think, a lot of people don't know what to expect. I know you guys, you lose so much. You lose Henry To'oTo'o, goes to Alabama, but you still got some veteran pieces hanging around there. We talked with Theo Jackson a couple weeks ago. He's excited. He thinks the secondary at least can surprise some people. But to me, I think it starts up front and kind of getting that pressure on the opposing teams.
Rodney Garner, one of the best defensive line coaches in America in all college football. That is going to be the biggest addition that Tennessee has made, in the offseason. And, you look at that defensive line, so many returners, so many guys who have played so much football at Tennessee. I feel like all these guys are like 6 or 7 year seniors, and Matthew Butler, Jaquan Blakely, Aubrey Solomon's been here a while. Guys like that, but, not a whole lot of production last year. In their defense, really, Tracy Walker did a great job with those guys in 2019. He leaves and goes to South Carolina. You bring in Jimmy Brumbaugh. Jimmy Brumbaugh is fired 3 games into the 2020 season. Then you have Jeremy Pruitt, who's the head football coach, trying to coach the defensive line. It's just been a lot of turnover at that position. So I expect that unit to take a step up, simply better coaching and just really having some consistency. But it's going to be a lot in the rotation, a lot of guys going in. Tennessee, I expect Tyler Barron, guys like Byron Young is a name that you'll hear throughout the season that I think is going to help out with the pass rush. Roman Harrison now, a guy that's been there a couple of years, he's going to be playing on the edge too. So I expect that pass rush to improve. And then in return, that'll help the secondary, a veteran secondary, Alontae Taylor, Theo Jackson, you mentioned, Trayvon Flowers, Warren Burrell, a couple of newcomers, Brandon Turnage, former Alabama player, Kamal Haddon, had a cup of coffee at Auburn during spring practice. Those type of guys are going to be able to go and make some plays and benefit, I think, because of the improved play up front.
The line is 35, Eric. If you were a betting man, and our buddies over at BetOnline.ag, they've kind of set this line and it hasn't moved a whole lot, but I know you're confident in Heupel and getting more production out of the quarterback and the offense and Joe Milton and all that, but are you 35 points confident?
Listen, I encourage everybody listening and watching right now to go to betonline.ag and take a part in everything they have going on, especially this weekend. But if you want my advice for this game, I'm saying just stay away from it. Because, here's the thing, man, and I've been consistent with this all week long leading up to the game tonight. Tennessee can beat the brakes off of Bowling Green tonight, okay? Win by 4 touchdowns and a field goal, and then you could still potentially not cover this ball game. So, does Tennessee get up early on and then call the dogs off? I don't know. Does Tennessee get up early on and keep the pedal to the metal? You know that they're going to be running plays with that tempo offense. It's really kind of hard to tell, in my opinion, but I do know it's game one. It's a new system, a new head coach, and a new quarterback. Even though it's Bowling Green, even though you're playing an inferior opponent, it's not going to be perfect. And so, do I see Tennessee winning by a large amount? Absolutely. 35 points? I don't know. I'm going to stay away from this game, but I look forward to jumping in some other games this weekend.
Real quick, because we're going to go over a couple of the games, look ahead to around the SEC in the next segment. But just looking ahead for Tennessee briefly, I like how the schedule sets up. Obviously, the road gets very brutal once you get into a couple weeks, but at least out of the gates, Bowling Green tonight. Next week, an early game against Pitt, but Pittsburgh's a nice game, a nice team to kind of measure where you're at. And then Tennessee Tech the week after before you head to the Swamp. Is this almost no discredit to Bowling Green, but is this almost like a dress rehearsal getting your guys ready for a tough Pitt opponent in week 2?
Yeah, it should be. But again, Tennessee fans, I feel like are not going to take anything for granted after what happened in 2019 with a loss to Georgia State. Now, you can't live on that. And certainly Bowling Green is not that 2019 Georgia State team. Bowling Green, respectfully, but also historically, one of the worst, football teams, last year in 2020, and it lost a lot of talent, kind of like Tennessee did. But I kind of view it as that you get the game firmly in hand and where you're comfortable, and then you start working on some things. Maybe start mixing up some personnel groups, kind of stuff like that. But next week, Pittsburgh is going to be a great measuring stick game. A lot of people around here are saying that's the most important game on the schedule because it is a measuring stick. If you beat Pittsburgh, Tennessee has a real chance of staying healthy to take down Missouri 2 weeks later, take down Kentucky later in the week. And those are two other toss-up games that could make the difference between 6-6, 7-5, 5-7 on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think that Pittsburgh game is in a really good spot, but also, Tennessee will get into that gauntlet of the SEC schedule, and that's why South Carolina on October the 9th is so critical. It's a game that I have Tennessee winning, but if for some chance Tennessee slips up and loses that game, I mean, you're staring, 5 losses straight in the face potentially. So Pitt, a huge measuring stick game. South Carolina, in my opinion, the most important game because it is a game Tennessee has got to win on October the 9th.
We'll go around the conference, preview some of the other SEC games with Eric Cain right after this. We just talked about it a little bit, and we need to remind you guys, it's that time of year. It is time for football, and it's time for you to get your butt to BetOnline.ag, the number one spot for all things pro and college football this season. You get all the updated odds, props, and tons of contests they got going on, including their NFL Survivor contest, tons of stuff. Make sure you head to their website right now. You can even do it on your mobile device. Sign up today. And if you sign up for the first time at BetOnline, you can receive a 100% welcome bonus when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all their great offers available for the 2021 season. And just a reminder, BetOnline has got all the SEC games happening across the country this weekend. You can bet on all of them. If you feel like somebody's going to pull an upset, you feel like somebody's going to cover, whatever it is, you can do it all at BetOnline. Go to betonline.com right now, your online sportsbook experts. Final segment with our buddy Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols. And Eric, I appreciate you hanging out with us, getting our folks ready for the Vols and Bowling Green tonight. But I would be remiss if we didn't touch on some of the other big SEC games going on around the country this weekend. And we'll first start off with, we could talk Rice in Arkansas. We could talk Louisiana Monroe, Kentucky. We're going to stick with some of the big ones. 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern on ABC in Atlanta. It's number one Alabama versus Miami. The line is still right around 19 and a half. Your thoughts, Eric? I mean, is Miami not getting enough credit here? I'm starting to think that they could hang around with Alabama at least for a couple of quarters.
Hey, don't fall in the trap now. Now I get it. I want to fall in that trap too. I mean, Alabama is replacing so much. I mean, you're talking a Heisman Trophy winner, an NFL starting quarterback now in Mac Jones, Najee Harris, who's going to be phenomenal with the Steelers, I feel like, and some offensive linemen, plus some talent on defense, but it returns so much on defense as well and adds in the case of Henry To'oTo'o. So, I want to say Miami can make it a game. I want to say Miami can hang around for a little bit, but we've seen it time in and time out, even in week 1, 2, and 3, when they're still trying to fill themselves out. Alabama's got the depth. Alabama's so well coached. Even with a new play caller now this year, I'm staying with Alabama, and I'm not thinking twice about it.
LSU going on the road to UCLA. They were displaced by Hurricane Ida. They've been practicing all week in Houston. Now they're going to head out to Los Angeles today and start prepping for UCLA. We got to see UCLA a little bit last week playing Hawaii. It's so interesting, Eric. Talk about 2 Michigan transfers. You guys have one in Joe Milton, who's now your starting quarterback for Tennessee. Another transfer, Zach Charbonnet, a running back, goes to UCLA, and he had like 6 rushes for 100 yards last week for UCLA, showing that their run game is pretty good. Going to be a different front facing an LSU defensive front, but man, that line, after what people saw UCLA looked like, Chip Kelly, it's kind of been a disaster his first few years there, but man, UCLA kind of looked the part this past week, and that line's come down to LSU just by 3. A lot of people thinking UCLA can not just hang around, but maybe have a chance to upset LSU.
Yeah, it's been a train wreck for Chip Kelly out there at UCLA, but season opening games typically are meant to look good, and that's exactly what UCLA did last week. I mean, got up 44-3 there in the first half at one point, looked really, really good. But LSU, even with some injuries it's sustaining right now, just so much talent, a lot of talent both at the line of scrimmages, out on the skill players, and I think LSU, I think I have LSU finishing right around 3rd in the SEC West, but a talented roster to where it can compete with just about anybody in the SEC West. So I think UCLA will hang around, make some plays early on, kind of feed off that momentum it's riding right now. But I see this being an SEC victory, even with all the distractions with having to relocate, having to practice in Houston all week and go on the road and play this football game.
We'll touch on the Mammoth game in just a second, but a quick thought. A game that just really intrigues me, and it's not happening until Monday night, but that one's also in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Louisville versus Ole Miss. I know the Rebels have been around a 10-point favorite, but we know Matt Corral is good. I'm curious to see, somebody posed to me a few weeks ago. They said, how good can Matt Corral be without Elijah Moore? I mean, I think we underestimate how good he was for them last year at receiver, but let's just say the offense is fine. I think what we want to see from the Rebels is, can that defense get better? Because they were god-awful last year. I don't know much about Louisville, but need to see Ole Miss's defense take a step forward this year, maybe force some turnovers. And is that what you're also looking for in this one?
Yeah, and I mean, it can't be much worse than what it was last year, right? And with Ole Miss, if that defense is average in the SEC, I mean, Ole Miss is going to be a force without a doubt, because you got Corral, you are replacing so much, or a little bit on offense, and some playmakers, obviously, but that's where Plumlee steps up. What is Plumlee this year? The former quarterback, he played wide receiver in the bowl game. I think he had 6 or 7 catches. He's going to be playing in the slot. How much can he make up for the loss of obviously one of the best players in college football last year? Ole Miss is going to be able to run the football well, going to be able to throw the football well, has one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. And, Lane Kiffin has been very vocal about how he thinks his defense is improved. So if it has indeed improved, you continue to run the way you've been, Matt Corral is going to go out there. And as long as he doesn't have one bad game where he throws 4 interceptions, I'll look for Ole Miss to be just fine this year and really contend to try to be that tier right below Alabama in the SEC West. So we'll have to see. Louisville, good start with Satterfield in year 1. Last year, only 4 wins, I believe. So they're going to be coming out motivated, but I like Ole Miss in this one.
All right, the last one, the headliner of the week, Eric. Number 5, Georgia, taking on number 3, Clemson at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, nationally televised on ABC. Clemson's been around a field goal favorite this whole time throughout the offseason. Look, I keep saying, if you're a Georgia fan, you don't want to lose the game, but it's not the end of the world if you were to lose it. Your season doesn't end. It's not over. You can still run the table, but man, if Georgia is able to beat Clemson, man, they'll be feeling really good about themselves as the season gets going.
I keep on saying, if not now, then when? I mean, if ever for Georgia, right? With Alabama losing everything it lost, its play caller, its quarterback, its Heisman Trophy winner, all that stuff. And Georgia just seemingly, I know there's some injuries right now, and they're going to be without some guys in this game and maybe the first couple weeks of the season, but Georgia is just clicking. You got a quarterback you feel really, really good about, got a couple backs, got a returning veteran offensive line, got a good defense to go along with it. And, as far as the matchup against Clemson, you're right. I mean, even if you stub your toe and you lose that game, it doesn't affect your SEC standing. It doesn't affect really anything, because if you rebound and, you run the table in the SEC and then you get to Atlanta, I mean, you're still just a win away from getting to the college football playoff and potentially really making some noise. So I'm going to take Clemson in this ball game because I think it's still a little bit more experience, but I do like Georgia, and I expect Georgia to have a phenomenal year this year, not just in the East, but really giving Alabama all it can handle in Atlanta come December.
Yeah, I mean, look, DJ Uiagalelei looked good in that game against Notre Dame last year, but JT Daniels got more starts under his belt, so we'll see if experience matters there. Eric Cain, host of Locked On Vols, let all our listeners know what you got going on the podcast and where they can find you.
Yeah, so I mean, today it's all previewing Tennessee's game day, getting hyped up and ready for that. No pun intended. What do you need to know about Bowling Green? Who is Bowling Green, and what does Tennessee need to do and accomplish tonight? We will recap all that was that football game on tomorrow's podcast, stats, highlight calls, all that and more. And then, hey, it's football season's here, so we're going to get in a routine of welcoming on some weekly guests and previewing and crossover shows, all that and more on Locked On Vols.
Eric, thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, as always, thank you, man.
Eric Cain there of Locked On Vols. Need to remind you guys on the way out of here that Locked On Bets is where you can get all your information you need going into game weekend. Don't make it a guessing game. Locked On Bets with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. Lee will give you his lock of the day. Follow Locked On Bets, brought to you by BetOnline.ag, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Full preview of all the games going into the weekend. We'll recap what Tennessee does with Bowling Green and get you guys set for the weekend. Week 1 of the SEC. It is here. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.